Welcome back, friends. I hope that your week is starting off well, and I hope you enjoyed our service this last Sunday. I spoke about a topic which was intended to be something of a challenge, or at the very least something that carry with you in order to ponder and reflect on a little bit. Namely, how do we come to a decision collectively and as individuals about the way we move forward? Historically and practically, we often think of consensus as being the operational principle. When we reach consensus, we're a go. But as I proposed on Sunday, sometimes, and maybe all the time, it's not consensus that drives the work required for movement, but actually what the theorist I referenced, dissensus, right? The theorist, by the way, is Jean-Francois Lyotard. Of course, he's French, because only the French come up with these creative, playful words for us. But the thought is, it's fundamental disagreements, seeming impasses that generate the kind of work and labor to come up with new words, expressions, and practices that speak to the fullness of our experience here and now. And if we rely on older forms to always do the work, they're not going to be able to satisfactorily deal with what you and I encounter on a daily basis. The world changes. It has changed and it will change. We change. Communities change. The environment is changing. We talk about climate change regularly. So acknowledging the change that exists and is inevitable, how do we then move forward? And so I coupled this discussion with Paul's mention of the body of believers, which has many members who do different things, who operate differently. How do they, as a body, work together, even with disagreement, even with dissension? Now, Paul is careful to avoid stirring that pot too much. Paul is trying to deal with conflict, and as we all know, that is a difficult, undesirable position to be in. Most of us are conflict avoidant because in our experience, conflict creates the end of relationship, right? Something blows up, people get upset and they go away and the relationship falls apart. That's what conflict typically does. But part of the reason that I think conflict does that is because we're taught to think that only once we've agreed or reached consensus can we move. But you can be in conflict and be productive. There are productive conflicts. In fact, I believe conflict is one of the more generative things, so long as it can be appreciated as a driver and a mover. Now, if neither of us wants to work, conflict might very well end the relationship, the practice, the community, whatever. But if we're willing to do the work and we're committed aspirationally to a vision of the world we want to live in, the world we want to leave for our children, their children, everybody's children, if we can share in that aspiration, we don't need a fixed set of criteria to let us know whether we're ready to move forward. We can let conflict motivate the additional work that is required. Because the reality is this: the church, as we all know, historically has been a fairly cumbersome structure. We're trying to become a bit more nimble and agile. And conflict is a reminder that we have more work to do, right? We don't have all the answers, and at least here at First St. Andrews, we don't pretend to have all the answers. But we are dug in and committed to doing the work. Yes, sometimes it's easy to just default to what we know or feel comfortable with. But all of us truly know, because you've shared with me, I feel like I can say that with some confidence. We know that we have to be open to some newer ways of doing, being, and thinking, because the world hasn't stopped changing. We might want it to. We might want to break, give us a 5-year pause on change, but it's just not how reality works. And so we have to trust the process, trust that God is with us in all this change, and that together, living aspirationally towards this vision of a beloved community, conflict can be an agent of positive change for us and for our communities. So I hope you were able to take something positive from our meditation on conflict and what true solidarity really means. It doesn't mean agreeing on everything. It means being willing to stand and work in the midst of disagreement and conflict. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next week for our next postscript. Have a good week.